If I accomplished one thing at CES in Las Vegas, it was seeing one of my favorite artists of all time perform live at Allegiant Stadium. And I also got to see some really cool tech. What's up, everybody? Chris Hagen here, crawling out of a hole to talk about what's been up lately and take you a little bit behind the scenes for some of the work I did at CES 2024, where I spent nearly a week in early January filming and editing my life away, if I'm being honest about it. It was a fun trip though, but it's one that definitely challenged me in a different kind of way. I'm a video producer with Digital Trends, and as such, me and the team got to check out a lot of new TVs, laptops, monitors, even robot vacuums, and a lot more in Las Vegas. It was actually my first trip to Vegas, and I want to use this video to tell you about what I brought with me to churn out so much content in such a short amount of time, the process of filming on the go, and what I learned about covering such a large tech conference. It definitely had its challenges, like hauling the gear necessary to create high quality videos across the city by way of cab and monorail, rideshare, my own 2 feet. And if you're someone who's often a solo shooter, maybe there are some things that we talk about in this video that can help you in the future. So we'll go over the biggest difference makers in terms of gear for the week, how I approach filming big events, and some takeaways overall from a wild but fun week. Starting with the gear, first of all, you got to get the gear there by way of plane and through TSA and all that good stuff. And then you've got to be able to move around with it efficiently. My go-to of all the camera bags and cases right now is the one I bought almost 4 years ago, the Nomadic Peter McKinnon 35-liter backpack. And I think it's worth doing a separate video about it and how I've grown into it. Anyway, being able to load down a big backpack means I still have 2 hands free for carrying, mainly coffee, but I also put my tripod in a big bag. That way I can just sling it over my shoulder and again, still have my hands primarily free, sometimes just because I like to film on my phone or a camera as I'm walking or riding around the city. The daily driver as far as a camera rig was the Sony FX3 with the Sigma 24-70 f2.8 lens. For audio, I was rocking the Rode Wireless Pro Kit. The Ninja 5 monitor also came in handy behind the camera. I used the SmallRig Mini V-Mount VB99 battery for external power to power up the rig and the camera specifically. And then inside the camera, one of the stars of the show, the Angelbird 1TB CF Express Type A card. Now, shooting in the compressed XAVC HS format, this card holds nearly 40 hours of 4K 24 frames per second footage. In fact, I will admit that all of that footage from CES is still on that card as I'm filming right now on the FX3 because, well, there just hasn't been a need to delete it yet. I also carried a few small lights in the backpack, specifically the one I use most, probably this little $50 tube light from Ulanzi that it's actually being used right now back there as a bit of a practical light, and a small Lume Cube panel as well. And I will say, these are probably the only things in my setup I would change in the future. The lights were okay for shooting on the go, plus we often had very limited time filming most things. We were in and out of some events in as little as 60 to 90 minutes, so every minute counted and there really wasn't much time or space to set up bigger lights. But still, there are some pretty compact and more powerful and brighter lights that are available that I'd look for in the future. I often found myself maxing out the output on these little lights and placing them just off camera to get anything close to the light necessary for the talent. Not to mention, a lot of the booths and displays are meant to light products and not people, so you had to work with what you had, and often that was pretty low light. And as for editing, I was rocking a 16-inch M1 Pro MacBook Pro, which still handles just about anything I can throw at it. Now, the gear is one thing, but using it on the go is where I found my kit really started to shine. And by no means is this a random collection of gear that I chose to bring to Vegas. It's all stuff that I've used daily in our Portland studio, and to be honest, it's pretty similar to my wedding kit, minus the 24-70 lens. I prefer the Tamron 35-150 for weddings, and on the matter of weddings, if you can handle the craziness of a wedding day and how quickly everything moves there, I think you can probably handle event coverage similarly to that in terms of just being in a fast-paced environment. For CES though, the 24-70 was perfect. We shot in a lot of smaller spaces, and for A-roll, the 2.8 aperture was just bright enough with some added light. Overall, I'd say when it comes to shooting anything, especially solo, keep it as simple as possible, minimize the things you need to keep up with and the things that can go wrong. One lens, one V-mount battery, one massive memory card, one tripod, maybe a small light, and you can probably pass on the gimbal. The V-mount battery, absolutely clutch. I don't think it ever dipped below 50%, and if it did, it was because I just didn't charge it the night before because I wasn't too worried about it. And the tripod with a fluid head, I should add, was probably the real MVP. I could go handheld and did go handheld for some shoots, but the perfectionist in me was often stabilizing clips in post, and it added a lot of time that I didn't want to have to add repeatedly in the edit. If there's one thing I wish filmmakers and videographers would talk about more, it's the importance of a great set of sticks. Way simpler than a gimbal or any other stabilizer, and used correctly, the results will still set your footage apart like any of those other things. Even in some crowded spaces like this ASUS event, checking out gaming laptops and monitors, and a Samsung event where we got an early look at the new S24 line, it was all I really needed. Seriously, look at these clips from my iPhone behind the scenes paired with the actual footage. It doesn't even look like I'm moving the tripod head, but with B-roll like this, a lot of times less is more. No fancy whip pans, no walking gimbal shots, just keep it simple. Get B-roll that you can use and repurpose, and get B-roll that, if you have to share with the rest of the team, isn't overly confusing and another editor can easily see what they're looking at and not have to pull their hair out going through it for usable content. As for audio, that was a little bit more of a challenge at times. You were pretty hard pressed to find a quiet area among the chaos of casinos and the convention floor and all the people around. But the combination of the Rode Wireless Pro Lav mics and Adobe's Voice Enhancer AI did the trick. And side note, as someone who uses both DaVinci Resolve and Adobe Premiere Pro, I've found that the Premiere Pro Beta runs better for me than the standard program, and I'm wondering, is that the case for you guys too? I've had fewer crashes and smoother performance on just a base M1 Pro MacBook that I use for work. I'm certainly not complaining that it seems to be the beta that runs better for me, just found that kind of weird. Anyway, what did I learn from my first trip to Vegas for CES? Honestly, I learned the limits of my brain and body as a video editor. In a past life, I was a sports reporter in a top 50 US market. I've covered college football and college baseball national championships, the Kentucky Derby, the NFL and NBA playoffs, just huge events with tons of media and lots of work. But the output from CES was nuts. Our team filmed and edited 18 long-form videos within 7 days. So, hey, maybe do us a favor and go check them out on Digital Trends' YouTube page. Now, personally, I was responsible for, I think, 8 of them, many of which were turned around in less than a day, which meant my hotel room was starting to look like a gear closet and coffee cup graveyard when it was all said and done. But in the process, I also gained another level of respect for the content creators I work with, because it was nothing short of 10, 12, 14-hour days of navigating busy hotels and convention centers and putting out tons of real reporting, real videos, and real work. Not just saying, hey, we're in Vegas and showing some highlights, but actually bringing what we saw there to the internet, to the viewers, with some real insight behind it. It's honestly why it took me so long to get this video out, because as much as I wanted to film this in Vegas, there was absolutely no chance of me doing that. Now, what would I say to anyone planning to cover CES in the future, or what would I tell my future self to remember? I would say maybe try to pack a little less gear, but really outside of what I listed, the only other major item I brought was my A7 IV with a 35mm prime, and I would do that all over again as a good backup option should anything happen to my FX3. And like I said earlier, I'd try to improve the lighting situation with a portable 60-watt light, or just something that's still compact but brighter than what I brought for this last trip. The most important thing is to know your gear, know how to troubleshoot it, know what you need in different scenarios, know what's best for versatility and filming on the go. That's all I've got today, guys. Hope it was helpful, and I hope it gives you a little bit more perspective at what it looks like to be an everyday content creator and videographer. Let me know what you think and what you'd like to see more of, and I'll see you in the next video, sooner than later.